Hey everyone, this is CAR RAYROB.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob.
And we want to welcome you to our podcast. Say hello to my little film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
That's right, everyone. We want to welcome you to a brand new episode of Say Hello to My Little Film. Before we get started, Ray, tell everyone what it is we do here.
Yeah, Rob, on Say Hello to My Little Film, one of us introduces the other to a film that they love, but the other has never seen before.
We call that our fresh perspective on a retrospective review. And Ray, it is your episode.
It's my episode, so I have a movie that I really love. I'm going to introduce you to it. I'm really excited about this.
Are you?
I'm trying to follow a little bit of a pattern. So last November, I went black and white. I did like the oldest movie we had done on the show so far.
High Noon, which caused me to do McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
Yes, it did. Inspired you. Well, I'm
Inspired
going
me.
back to black and white.
Okay.
Going back to a period piece.
Okay.
I'm going back to the 1600s.
Oh my God.
Well, that's when the movie takes place. That's not when the movie was made.
I was going to say that would not make sense.
That was before moving
That
pictures.
was before moving pictures.
But yeah, we're going to go to feudal Japan.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
So is this a foreign language film?
Yep, you're going to have to read subtitles.
Oh, man.
Or like really improve your use of Japanese.
This is like your third one this season.
I know. Well, I have to go overseas to find movies that you haven't seen
I mean, I
yet.
guess that's fair, but it's super interesting. But I'm excited about everything I've heard thus far. But before we go any further, Ray, I got to know, what do you got?
What do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
Well, everybody, that was a
Wow.
that was an impression of Harakiri, the old Cubs announcer.
Out of nowhere. Out of nowhere with
Well,
the Will Ferrell
kind of
Harakiri impression.
Kind of, yeah. It was more. Yeah, it was really an impression of Will Ferrell doing an impression of Harakiri. But there was a reason.
Of an impression.
There was a reason. The reason I did that is because the movie that I'm going to show you is from 1962. It's Harakiri.
Oh.
Which in America a lot of people say Harry Carey.
That's okay. So the act of killing yourself.
Yeah, a samurai
Yes.
basically cutting their gut, spilling their bowels, and then becoming beheaded.
Ritual suicide.
Yes, ritual suicide. So obviously that sounds like a fun concept for a movie.
It does. It does. I think I have heard of this movie. I believe it is on the Criterion Collection.
It probably is. It's usually
I've
ranked.
never seen it.
I know, like on IMDb, it's in the top maybe top 50 movies of all time.
Oh wow!
It's it's a classic. Director Kobayashi, I think his first name is like Masaki Kobayashi. This is one of his gems. The lead actor protagonist is Tatsuya Nakadai. I know Nakadai always claimed that this was his favorite movie he's ever done. It's really good. It's hard to get to properly set up more than maybe what we already have, because I don't want to give it away, and there's some twists in the storytelling. But I will say I find the storytelling to be very intriguing. This is a movie where it's not necessarily going to really ever pick up pace. It's really a movie of two guys talking to each other.
Okay.
A lot of it is just two guys talking to each other.
Okay.
And I love dialogue. I love the use of dialogue. I love how
Sure.
dialogue can be a weapon. So I kind of find it, if you can kind of hold my attention for 2 hours when people are just kind of talking, I think that's a feat.
Definitely, absolutely, and it's a genre I'm not in. I have some familiarity with.
Yeah.
I have what I feel like you would consider the base level film nerd familiarity, and that is Akira Kurosawa.
Sure.
I've seen when I was in film school, I saw Ran, I saw Rashomon, I saw The Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
I mean, those are kind of like standard fare, but I will admit I've never dove too much deeper into the genre, so I'm kind of excited to do this.
Yeah, and I will say this movie is kind of in a way where High Noon was like a different take on a Western for that time.
Uh-huh.
This isn't really a movie that's supportive of samurai feudal Japan systems.
This is the anti-samurai.
So in a way, it kind of is an anti. So that kind of even more to
we just became a Mrs. Miller. And now we're doing this. This is great.
I don't maybe I hope that the anti isn't just because that's fresh in my mind, but it and I don't want to give too much away, so we'll wait till expand on
okay,
that
okay,
thought
okay,
in the
okay.
after
We're
section.
talking too much. We're talking
Yeah.
too much.
We have to watch it.
We have to watch it, which is what we're going to do right now. So what Ray and I would like you to do is pause the podcast if you have not seen Harakiri and go watch this hopefully great movie. Then unpause the podcast and then come back and find out if I love it as much as Ray does.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
All right, everybody, we are back from watching Harakiri, and in Harakiri fashion, I am sitting above Rob on a stage. Rob is kneeling down before me, and we're going to have a conversation in this manner.
I didn't know I was going to do this. It's very uncomfortable, but I think we're going to. It puts me in the mood, though.
Tsugumo did it for a whole movie. You can do it.
Fair enough. That's true. Yeah. No. It was. It's interesting. I think after watching this movie, we usually have a question, and this is a movie very much about honor.
Oh, yes.
You were right. It's very much about honor. But you got to ask yourself, after watching this, is honor even real?
That's a great question.
Or is it just a fictitious construct?
That's a great question. I think that's what Suguro is challenging.
I know. Yeah.
For a lot of this movie. So let's answer that question
You
by
wanna
the end
answer
of
that
this.
one?
By the end.
Okay. Well, that's what we're going to go with.
So that's where we'll shoot to end this conversation. We got to find answers along the way. But I think I know where I would want to start. And I think to me the pivotal thing of where you're at when you watch this movie on our first viewing is, or what I want to ask you on your first viewing is, where do you find Motome Chijiwa, his, I hope we're saying these names as best we can.
We're going for it.
But where do you find yourself when you see his Harakiri story told from the counselor's position, when it's being told to Suguro? What did you feel about Motome?
I mean, it was kind of an interesting thing because at first I wasn't sure exactly what was happening. So you open up with Tsugumo coming to the door and
knocking on the door
and ask, "Can I kill myself in your yard?" I mean,
yeah.
First off, that's a weird thing, right?
That is what this movie's about.
That's what this thing is about. It's essentially about a guy knocking on a door and asking them if you can kill yourself in your yard.
Sure.
That is interesting.
Do you want people to watch? Yeah, a bunch.
Get as many as you can get.
You're at the
Bring
right
them
spots.
on, man. Can I sell tickets?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's so it seems like, yes, this is what who this story is centering on, and then through the process of information that is released, they talk about Chijiwa, and ask him if he knows Chijiwa,
right?
And he plays a little coy, no, there's a lot of guys. So then when Chijiwa's story finally comes, it was a little jarring at first because wait a minute, am I still when am I?
Right.
So when I finally got it in my head, okay, so this is a flashback. Yeah, I mean it was an interesting, I just guess situation to be in when it's these guys are going to these doors asking to do this, but it really in all actuality hoping maybe they'll give him money,
right?
Instead of going through with it,
or hire them on,
right. I guess, and that's kind of maybe the main thing is this idea of I'll give you a position in my army or whatever, and that way you're no longer living in poverty. But even with that kind of possibility of this being a con, which it becomes more apparent that it is, once you find out he has the bamboo swords and all of that, I still feel bad for him, because it's this is, I mean,
pretty desperate.
It's pretty desperate. Yeah, you probably have to be in a pretty desperate spot to do this, and then obviously where it ultimately leads is brutal beyond belief.
Yeah, we'll get there one second, because I'll say, I think I originally fell for the trap of the movie when I first viewed it because, I think we talk about it all the time. It's hard to tell early on in this movie who the protagonist is, like
Sure.
whose viewpoint you're supposed to be following. So I think I just took for granted the first time watching that, all right, I'm just the senior counselor. These guys, I'm guessing, are the good guys, so their perspective is correct and what it should be. I don't know how the system worked in the 1600s, so this is very disgraceful that this dude is begging for money by pretending to want Harakiri. So yeah, make him go through with it. That's what he gets.
But the possibility too is that this story may not even have been true.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean, and that's the other half of it. But I agree. Like
that's what I mean. I fell for the trap.
Right. That, whether it was true or wasn't, like it's still. I feel like there was just kind of like this. And again, I think it's part of it is coming in with this idea of what a samurai is and what a ronin is, and to see somebody kind of down on their luck because it wasn't that these guys weren't actually samurais or ronins pretending to do this. It was actual samurai or ronin who had fallen on hard times who were doing this.
Yes.
So it's an interesting juxtaposition of like the ideal of what a samurai is and the low point that they find themselves in.
Exactly. That they were even allowed to even get that low is kind of crazy, I guess. But they and we'll talk more I think about the reveal of information, but you mentioned already when Motome does perform Harakiri, which he kind of does, or at least the best he can.
Right, like he tries to get out of it.
They make him do it with the bamboo swords, and they basically show this process on screen. Yeah. Not like the actual like blades entering the body, but like you see this man trying to stab himself with a bamboo sword because he's being forced to go through with it, and he will. And it's just so painful to watch. I can only imagine what this felt like in 1962, but I think even watching it today, you're like, geez, finish this. Cut his head off for him. Right. Like, this is just horrible to watch.
Yeah, and I think once you get to that point, I do think that, we were talking about the idea of, seeing it from the perspective of the counselor, and you're thinking, okay, they're in the right. I think by this point, you kind of realize that they're not.
They've gone too far.
Right. Well, and even in their conversations leading up to it, where they clearly knew that he wasn't there to commit Harakiri. Like it was very much like this. It's like the cruelty was the point.
Right. Like because they're now going to stop anybody else from coming on our doorstep and doing this.
Exactly. Like it was
just hang up a sign and say, "Please don't kill yourself in our
Please
yard.
don't kill yourself in my yard." Like it's you get a no trespassing sign. Can't you get that?
Yeah.
No harakiri. No harakiri. It's so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems that way. They didn't think of these things back then. I guess.
It's not.
It's hard, but yeah, this is where you start to like turn like, oh wow, this is not like some fun little story, and then. You start to view, like I said, maybe I thought the senior counselor, these guys were going to be the protagonists of this movie, and you start thinking, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Where am I going to go with this movie? And kind of like we already hinted at. I think the reveal of information in this movie is so great,
definitely,
so perfectly done.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously by that point you kind of switch back to Tsugumo, which I think that's also a very telling point about this part of the movie when you're kind of trying to figure out back who's the protagonist, the antagonist, whatever. In Chijiwa's backstory, or in the flashback of him coming to the palace, whatever, he doesn't seem as serious about it. You know what I mean? Like there's not a gravity to him about that. Like he does seem. This does seem like a little bit more of a con. Whereas, like when Tsugumo comes, like he seems desperate.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you can see it on his face.
Yes.
And the way that he carries himself, he seems beaten down. Like he just crawled out of the nearest gutter.
Yep.
Which, as you said, like through the reveal of information, you find out why.
Right.
And I think that is really effective over the course of this movie.
Yeah. It's funny, as Seguro is kind of coming up to the senior counselor again months later after the Chijiwa backstory that we had watched, he starts to drip us this information, and his setup is the exact same as Motome's, of course, because they come from the same spot, and the senior, that's not lost on the senior counselor that their stories are not similar but exactly the same.
Right.
And so that's where you started to get, as an audience member, hinted at, or as we slowly find more and more of the game that Seguro's playing, that's step one.
Yeah.
Step two is like, well, no, I did know him. I knew him a little bit.
Right.
My favorite, I think, reveal of information, because obviously we can't talk about every scene of this movie.
Of course.
Because I might try to.
Of course.
Is, they basically have the whole courtyard set up. Sugiuro's going to go through with Harakiri, and you get a second.
Yes.
You get a second.
Right.
So basically, as you like slice your gut open horizontally and then vertically, they will then chop your second will then chop your head off and just all right, end it. You've done enough. We don't need you to actually writhe in pain.
Right.
We know you basically have done enough to commit the act, whatever. So he wants to name his own second, and he names somebody that's sick. He's not there at the moment.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, you have to name somebody else. And then he's like, and then when he names somebody else, and then you see this, like the camera then goes to the senior counselor, and the senior counselor like has that little like whisk in his eye where he's like, well, that guy's out sick too.
Right.
And this is weird because he's, this is weird. And like, and I just love that. And as an audience member, now you're catching on because you're watching his reaction. Like, this is weird. Seems like there's more and more connections. And then obviously he asks for a third person. And that person's out sick too.
Yeah.
And then you know that, okay, Motome's got, or not Motome, but Sugiuro has some cards up his sleeve.
Yeah. It's very interesting how, as I mentioned, how disheveled he seems, coming to this situation. And then when Sugiuro's like, in this scene, he has such an amazing sense of control.
Right.
Over, like, to the point where it's, it feels organic. You know what I mean? Like, from the characters, obviously not the acting. The acting obviously is what it is, but, it's purposeful. But, like, it was interesting watching, like you said, the counselor's reactions, simply because he's looking up down on this man, and he seems like I said, no more than like a gutter rat, and yet with every word, it's almost like chess, where he was like putting these pieces in place, but it's like you wouldn't expect it coming from him. It was but so methodical. It was great.
Yeah, I think even when he's like, when he first asked the senior counselor, he's like, hey, you mind me just like, as we're waiting for you guys to track down these seconds for me, because that, eventually like, well, they're sick. We're going to go get them, though.
Right.
He's like, well, do you mind me just kind of telling you my backstory?
Right.
And they're like, this will be amusing. This will be, I'm sure we have a lot to learn from this, essentially this loser.
Yeah.
Let's listen. And then, like you said, he slowly like captivates them more and more and more because they realize they're being played a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, the line when he's like, "Motome Chijiwa was of some acquaintance for me."
Yeah.
And then like you just see like the counselor's face kind of go like,
"Why did you lie about that?"
and then you go into the backstory, and like you said, I think this part is it's hard because typically in a movie, long conversations are not seen as something that you would do often.
No,
you know what I mean? They're very hard to do because you have to really make it work. And I think of something like Inglourious Bastards,
right?
Like the opening scene in Inglourious Bastards,
10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean it is long, but they've got it locked down. Quentin had it locked down, and I think this is kind of that similar thing where the counselor and Sugiuro, or am I saying it right?
Sugiuro. I always call him Hanshiro, but
Hanshiro.
Let's switch.
Yeah. They are able to pass the tension back and forth so well that these long dialogue sequences are really effective.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to hint at in the before section, but didn't want to try to give too much away because, like, to me, this movie is way more static than you would ever make a movie nowadays. Yeah. Like, it's not kinetic. It's not for like the ADHD generation.
No.
Like this movie is literally two guys sitting in chairs talking to each other for 80% of the movie, it feels like at times.
Absolutely.
And it's still captivating. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking a little bit about the cinematography real quick. I mean, especially in these sequences when you are in the courtyard and everything is very static. I mean, it gets so static that sometimes I thought it froze.
Right.
I'm
the movie glitched
because it's like it goes silent for a minute and then it's just static, and then all of a sudden Hanshiro's like, ooh, or something like that, where it's just somebody finally makes a sound and you're like, oh crap, and it's just like you kind of get lulled into this almost like visual poetry of it, and it's yeah, I just it's really incredible. I mean, I feel like like Asian cinema in general has this quite a bit, where there is like a lyricism to the cinematography,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this movie falls, I mean, bullseye into that.
Yeah, and you'd have to, like I said, with your with there's I guess there's an action scene at the end.
Right, there's one.
There's one,
Yeah,
but
one
really
big
everything else
one.
is pretty. It's there's a couple fight scenes, I guess, as he's toward like that third act when we're kind of see how he got attained the knot tops and stuff.
Right.
But really, other than that, before that, the movies there's not a ton going on. It's only like 2 or 3 sets. Like
Yeah.
it's all about the reveal of information, the dialogue, and the acting.
Yeah.
And
100%.
and it works.
Yeah.
100% works.
And so we kind of jump back into the backstory. So then let's talk a little bit about this. I think the longest backstory sequence, which is how Hanshiro ended up there.
Yeah.
Just like how Chijiwa ended up there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that is really
It's the
both
same,
of their
yeah.
backstory, because it's the same story. And I think this is where up to this point it's very titillating as to like everybody's situation. Like, why is he there? You can tell there's at least some kind of a game afoot. But this is where the meat is on the bone.
Yeah.
As to like what this movie's really about.
Yeah, you have to get bought in here.
Yeah.
And you start to learn that essentially like the sped up version would be Motome is the son of Hanshiro's best friend.
Janai.
Yeah, Janai or
Yeah.
Janai. And he ends up committing Harakiri. Janai
Right.
does.
So much. So much killing people
pretty
in
common
other
practice.
in other people's yards.
But basically, it was basically when they kind of knew that they were going to go down this poverty path in life.
Yeah.
And his last wish is basically take care of my son. You can't commit Harakiri right now.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's not fair, but okay. I mean, I guess.
I want to kill myself in somebody's
Yeah.
yard. Come on.
Well, he just did it in his master's
That's
bedroom,
fair. That's fair.
So basically, Motome is adopted by Hanshiro, and eventually he asks Motome to become his son-in-law, which is very
Miho.
interesting because to his daughter Miho, which is very interesting because like they're poor,
Right.
and his only way to get out of being poor would be to have had his daughter married into.
Right. Well, yeah. It
Well,
was like she was
essentially.
going to be, because somebody, like, he came to them and wanted her to be adopted by another family who he was then in turn, or
She's gonna be a
Hanshiro was going
concubine.
to be a concubine for somebody
Yeah.
else, but through that it would give
He would have got connections.
He would have gotten connections and a possible like better station in life, and he was against that. So there, I think there's
Because he's a man of honor.
He's a man of honor. There you go. There's exactly, and I think that, like I said, this is kind of where the meat of our question and
Yeah.
the movie and the themes of the movie I think really do come into play, and that's definitely part of it.
Yeah. So, he takes the high road. He's going to let his daughter be happy instead of, helping himself out. They end up, his daughter and Chijiwa end up having a baby, Kingo. The center and joy of their life. And I think it's great to see Grandpa Hanshiro.
Yeah.
He's so goofy,
Yeah.
for a samurai, like what we view
Right.
samurais to be. Like, no, when they went home, they were real people.
Yeah.
And to be just so goofy and lighthearted around his grandson and see how much joy it brought him was great. But good times don't last. Unfortunately for samurai, this was like times of great peace, which is great for the country but not for the samurai.
Yeah.
So they just continue to get basically deeper and deeper into poverty. They catch a cold, can't afford, not a cold, I don't know exactly what they share, if it was bronchitis or whatever it was.
Yeah.
An illness that was too
TB.
hard to...
I think it was TB because Miho was coughing up blood.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, it's true. And then end up basically can't afford doctors,
Right.
which is how we explain that Motome sells his swords for pawns his swords off. That's
Right.
why he had the bamboo swords to begin with.
Yeah.
Kingo, the baby, also gets really sick,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually they're in such despair that that's why Motome tried to do this fake Harakiri that ended up being forced to do the real one.
Right, because he had gotten so desperate,
Trying
that
to save
he
his kid's life.
Right, trying to save his kid's life, essentially. So yeah, I mean, you're kind of going back to what you were saying about not knowing the true motivation during the original Chijiwa flashback. I mean, by this point, you
You're
really
like,
get
yeah.
it, and you're like, oh man, like that's
Why didn't you
rough.
guys just give him $5 or
right?
something?
Like yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
But they never asked. They never really, they never asked for the whole story.
right,
And I think there's, this movie's about honor. I think we'll talk more about, I think, the themes a little bit. But like don't underestimate that this movie is talking about class as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think there's a lot that we can talk about that element of it. I found the idea of the reasons why this epidemic, if you will, of poverty-stricken Ronins
Yeah.
was happening. All these houses that were basically being like torn down,
Yeah.
and in the shadow of the I guess more successful houses, if you will, was such an interesting dynamic. It's not something I wouldn't say I'm an expert by any means on feudal Japan.
Sure.
So the political structure of it was, I mean, interesting and heartbreaking, like all at the same time, because
Yeah.
you have to imagine these very proud warriors, that are really in the employ of
Yeah.
somebody else, when there's some other person that you assume is a rich, wealthy person, powerful, and then that's all gone and you're just on the street.
Yeah, I mean, essentially they're like their own little countries inside these
Yeah.
walls, and
Yeah.
you're being paid. In the most simplified version, you're like the police officer or the army man, like you're there to
Right.
keep them safe. And in times of peace, or if your house falls, you can move to another house essentially, or move to another township. But their police force is already full. They don't
Yeah.
need anybody else,
Right.
and so you're just out of luck. Your
Yeah.
skill set isn't needed,
Yeah.
and they couldn't really find ways of employment that would pay them anywhere near what they were making.
Right. Yeah. So I completely agree that there is a strong class struggle
Right.
theme that runs through this movie.
Yeah, because I mean, essentially, at the end of the day, what we're talking about is, to clown. It's a clan, but I'm not sure exactly how they pronounce it. Like it's IYI, like E or
EO.
E.
EO.
I don't know how they pronounce their house.
E.
But whatever this
E?
counselor
Yeah.
that we're spending all this time with in their house, what it comes down to is like, well, we don't want somebody coming here asking for money, pretending that they want Harakiri, but really they want us to pay them. Okay,
Looks
so
like-
really you're saying us with power and money don't want to give it to poor people who are asking for it.
Right.
I mean, the guy's asking for Harakiri because he knows you won't just give it to him if he asks, which, I mean, fine.
Right.
These people are living in your lands. Find something for them to do. Solve
Right.
poverty. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like the wealthy, the haves and the have-nots. There's like, well, share.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I absolutely. And it. Again, this idea of like this proud, warrior class, if you
Yeah.
will. Like
Yeah.
the Ronin. I think. Just. I guess you could. Kind of equate them to like a modern military.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thinking about that, think about like homelessness amongst veterans in our
Right,
country
right.
now. So it's something very similar.
Yeah.
So but obviously, as Hanshiro eventually states, the pride, like the depths that they have to sink to and the pride that they have to swallow for one of these men to come to somebody's door, even in the act of conning.
Right.
It just goes to show like
Yeah.
how difficult it is.
Yeah. Because even if they thought, and of course, again, this is not something I thought originally, but my first viewing when I was watching Chijiwa's story, but as you go through the movie, you're like, all right, even if you did think he was faking wanting Harakiri, which they knew, think about what forced him. They never think about what forced him to get to that point. They never inquired and said,
Right.
why are you this desperate?
Yeah.
They just said, all right, he asked for it, he gets it. And, said that's the honorable thing. It's dishonorable to ask for Harakiri, but it's like, and I think that's what the movie's challenging, right? It's challenging this honor system where it's like, you think you're so honorable and so above everybody, but, look what you did. Look what this honor system did for you.
Right.
And maybe we can talk about the themes of the movie a little bit
Yeah.
in depth here, I think, or touch on that honor system because that's basically what this whole movie is getting to. I think, and you find out late in the third act, like Hanshiro's game is he's going to prove that everybody at this house that let Chijiwa do this to himself is dishonorable in and of themselves, whether they think they are or not. They are not great people. They're just hiding behind this code.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. And I think you kind of see that as the viewer. Going through it. Even as we talked about earlier with Chijiwa's original flashback, the way that they kind of spoke about Chijiwa, or just really these men in general, but obviously specifically Chijiwa because he was there.
Yeah.
and kind of how little respect they even had for them anyway. But and it was
Yeah.
because they all had a very high opinion of themselves.
Right.
And that's kind of this interesting thing with this honor code, where it seems like so much of it is really like it's like it's a code that's like reflected through yourself. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like, oh, I'm honorable because I believe X, Y, and Z, but you're not because of whatever. Again,
Yeah.
like whatever your situation is, and so it's you would think it's of it as being some kind of standard code, but it's really not.
No.
It's more what you're willing to call honorable or unhonorable.
Yeah. And that's kind of some of the debate they get into is, again, Motome Chijiwa did this Harakiri act trying to get money because it was successful at another house in some other town, who knows how far away.
Right.
But that house had sympathy for the person that came to them, listened to their story, and said, don't commit Harakiri. I know you asked for it, but don't. We're going to give you a job, and we're going to bring, whatever, quote-unquote, honor or whatever back to your life. So, like, what you kind of learn in the movie is like, okay, well, house IE like thought that wasn't honorable. If somebody to give that person a job after they asked for Harakiri, they broke honor, and we're not going to break that. So, like you said, it's how you view like the two sides of the same coin. It's like, well, that's not honorable. Our way is the honorable way, not their way. Well, their way helped the guy, and your way killed the guy.
Right, and it's kind of, again, I think based so much on kind of talking about class struggle. Your socio-political position.
Yeah.
The powerful get to make the rules.
Right.
And
Sure.
like that's kind of where I think in certain regards what this is saying is that they get to say that what they're doing is right and just because they have the power and the money.
Yeah.
And Hanshiro or Chijiwa have no room to say about it one way or the other. They're going to tell you that what you have to do to be honorable.
Right.
You're gonna commit Harakiri. Well, then you're gonna commit Harakiri because we tell you have to. That's how you're going to be honorable.
Right. And I think to me another powerful scene is when they return the body, and Hanshiro talks about that, and they are almost like laughing at times, like the three due to return the body are also the 3 seconds that
you find out,
Hanshiro asks for to be a second. They're all ill. We haven't said why yet, but they return the body, and they are kind of smirking. And they're kind of like laughing at what they were able to get Chijiwa to do.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're not the honorable ones here, dude.
Yeah.
Like, sorry to tell you, but that scene was tough.
Yeah.
But in this whole movie, and that's director Masaki Kobayashi, he made this movie in like a protest to the idealization of like the feudal Japan system.
Right.
Like, you're like, let's not be too quick to praise this old samurai lifestyle. It wasn't that great.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways it was like also supposed to be like represented of in World War II and the kamikaze divers. Like, we're still getting people like, okay, this was the 1600s. That was long ago. We wouldn't do that anymore. Like, no, you still did. Like, kamikaze divers were still people that were being basically forced to sacrifice their life for honor.
Yeah.
What they would view as honor. And he's, it's not right in his viewpoints. And that was part of the reason why he made this movie. And I love him. I love that that's why I kind of called this the anti-samurai movie. In the before section, like in that mindset.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely because you don't have. While there are moments where they do seem to put the practice on a pedestal, I do think that there are certain elements that kind of deconstruct it. And obviously we'll talk about the final fight sequence, but I definitely think that there are some symbolic gestures, if you will, actions during the final fight sequence that I think really prove that.
Yeah.
That really kind of show his thoughts on the ideal of the samurai. Yeah.
So, okay, well, let's get back to the movie just a little bit as we kind of get to that final act. So we kind of said, the whole Hanshiro backstory. This has now been told to the counselor.
Yeah.
And it basically, I just love not love in a good way. Love just like the movie. The counselor then pushes back a little bit. Like he's like, all right, I've heard your story. Maybe we took things a little too far, but at the end of the day, it's not our fault. We're not to blame.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we gave Chijiwa what he asked for. So how could you really fault us for that?
Yeah.
Which easily you could.
Yeah. Well,
But-
yeah. I mean, it's such, again, this kind of heartbreaking story, and it goes to show, again, cruelty is the point. And even when confronted with the depth that both Chijiwa and Hanshiro kind of found themselves in,
Yeah.
the lack of empathy is just
Right.
palpable.
Yeah.
And again, it kind of goes to show what you were saying earlier. Like, this is not an honorable man.
Right.
And I do think he realizes it in that moment. So I think that's kind of, there's so many nuances to the performances on both sides with the counselor and with Hanshiro. And even small facial movements. I mean, really,
Yes, for sure.
nuanced. They're just facial movements. And I think this scene is where the counselor kind of shines in that regard, because he has this amazing mixture of guilt and fear
Mm-hmm.
and realization
Yeah.
that all kind of come across his face at one time, and it makes the tension just, shoot through the roof.
Yeah,
in this
Pretty
scene.
palpable.
Yeah.
And this is about the time where like Hanshiro basically puts it out there. His
Yeah.
whole quest.
Yeah.
Is he says, samurai honor is nothing but a facade.
Yeah.
He calls it out in the middle of the courtyard with everybody's eyes on him.
Yeah.
And then like the rest of the movie is this battle to prove that honor is a facade, and the people he is talking to right now who hold themselves in the highest honor actually have none.
Yeah.
And you're going to kind of learn that was the game he was playing the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a line before that one that I wrote down that I just thought was so kind of great. You're kind of going back to this idea of like empathy, and you're kind of boxing this guy in essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But like we just talked about, no matter how grinding his poverty and hunger, for a samurai to present himself in someone else's doorway, and it was kind of what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, like I said, it really kind of put the counselor in a box.
Yeah.
At that point, and you kind of realized at this point that the counselor now realizes the error of his ways, but he can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like this box that he has trapped himself in, it's almost like the hypocrisy box, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And he realizes that he is the bad guy in that moment, but he doesn't have the strength or the honor, if you will, to overcome that.
Yeah. And so what do powerful people do when they're in a bad spot, or they can either be accountable, they point fingers and they yell at you.
Yep.
And the counselor kind of does that, and calling, basically at one point he calls Chijiwa a madman. Like, well, he came in here looking like a madman, so we let him commit harakiri.
Yeah.
And I love Hanshiro's response when he's basically like, I'm proud that he looked like a madman. When you went through what we went through, if he was okay with that, then that's when I would have felt, I would have felt bad for him. But what we lived through should have made him mad, and it did.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another great line where he's like, the suspicious mind conjures its own demons. And in that moment, you realize that Hanshiro is the counselor's demon. Like, he's the demon come to this house, if you will.
Yep.
Like, because it is a revenge story.
Oh, yeah.
In this regard, obviously. And I think, it's a slow burning revenge story. But this is when it really, like, kind of kicks off, because then you find out what happened to these three guys.
Yeah. So the 3 seconds that he named earlier, they were all ill.
Yeah.
Basically, their knot tops get thrown at the feet of the counselor.
Yeah.
And apparently this is the most dishonorable thing that can happen if you're a samurai, to have your knot top taken off.
I did know that. I knew that. I remember that from another movie or something. I do remember that.
Yeah, I did not. But, to have, like, no other wounds, but only to lose your knot top.
Yeah.
Kind of just shows, that you were just completely outmatched, apparently. Yeah. And so these guys are not ill. They're literally, these honorable men are literally hiding in shame.
Right.
And they're lying. Yep. And they're doing everything they can to not be seen.
Yeah.
And I kind of love, basically Hanshiro, on 2 of the guys, he basically snuck up on them and cut up. Not snuck up when they weren't looking, but he cornered them. They had a struggle, and he got their knot tops.
They're quick sequences, but effective.
Yeah. But then the Okada, I can't remember exactly what his name was. It's on my other sheet of paper. I'd have to flip it over.
Omodaka.
Yeah. He comes to Hanshiro because he's, caught wind of what's been going on, and somehow from the other two probably, and he challenges him to a fight.
Yeah.
And this is the guy that looks the toughest. He was the second for Shijiwa. He's the one who like cut off Shijiwa's head after the struggle with the bamboo. But it's funny because like you think like, oh, this would be the really hard fight.
Yeah.
And Hanshiro makes this funny little comment where he's like, yeah, peacetime warriors don't match people that actually were in the battlefield.
Right.
So this guy that you think is so good, he's nothing compared to me.
Right. Yeah.
I just love that little.
Point. Yeah.
I love that little like diss to them.
Yeah.
Because again, these guys they're hiding behind an honor that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
They're hiding behind a code that isn't real.
Right. So if there was another fight sequence outside of the final, fight sequence, it's this one with the duel.
Yeah.
And it's shot so beautifully.
Yeah.
Kind of on this, wavy, grass field. Kind of, and that's kind of what you would think of as like a traditional Japanese feudal Japan fight sequence.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a dance.
It is. I have to say this: if anybody's ever played the game Ghost of Tsushima, you just get so many like. Oh my God! They must like the game ripped stuff right from this
right.
battle. There's
That's
so
awesome.
many moments in that game that feel like you're doing this.
Yeah.
Which makes it great. I definitely suggest if you love this movie, you haven't played Ghost of Tsushima, do it, or vice versa. If you love the game, and you haven't seen this movie, check it out. But then there is that final battle, which to me is okay. I don't know if that was a great '60s battle, but I guess the interesting thing about it is like I guess that the actor of Hanshiro Nakadai was like scared to death during the whole filming of that because like they were all like real swordsmen and using real swords, which is not allowed in Japanese or any cinema nowadays. You cannot do that, but they did it then, and so he really did have to defend himself. But like the action itself, like does it look like a lightsaber battle that's going 1,000 miles an hour now? No, 1,000 miles an hour? No. But it looks real.
Yeah, I was gonna say I even wrote that down. Like there was a realism to the sword fighting in this sequence because it was kind of clunky, like, but not in like a.
I'm like, that's probably what it would be like fighting with a sword.
Exactly. There's a lot of these like stylized sword fighting sequences in movies. You're like, well, yeah, but this is all like seriously choreographed and blah. Like this felt like this is a fight. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like this is a guy who is literally in this moment just
nipping ankles if you can't do whatever you can.
Yeah, I'm taking as many of you with me. So this is kind of an interesting point. So it definitely seemed, and I think this is maybe, I imagine this is what he was going for in all honesty. So Hanshiro comes to this house to commit Harakiri,
right?
And he did.
Right, he does.
You know what I mean? Like, and so it's like, but in the end, it was almost like death by the guards.
Right.
And granted, he does commit Harakiri. You know, he does the gut rip thing.
Yeah. And then instead of getting head cut off, he basically gets shot.
Right. Which I put that in here, which I thought was interesting. I thought we were kind of talking about like kind of this repudiation of samurai tradition. The fact that they brought the guns in, I thought was a bit of that.
It was.
I think I mean? Where it's like the tradition itself calls for your head to be cut off, and in this they bring out the guns because it's like
it's almost admitting they couldn't kill him through sword fighting.
Right. Exactly.
So, dishonorable thing I think to do there.
Absolutely, and I felt like that was very intentional.
I think there was like two other things that I think are pretty intentional in this scene, in this sequence. Mm-hmm. Like there's one sequence where like the reason why Hanshiro is talking to the senior counselor is because the master of the house, like Zenuke or something, I can't remember exactly what his name is, he's not there, and he's never there. Like he's always at some other spot. But I feel like when he crashes through that one wall, like that guy that he stares at, they never say, but there's this one like,
oh yeah,
I feel like that is supposed to be Zenuke or whatever his name is. And I'm like, so this is again another example of dishonorable where like he's at his house, but he pretends he is, and he has other people do all his bidding.
Definitely.
So that's another thing, like hiding behind a senior counselor, hiding behind honor. And then I think the other thing is, the movie opens up on House E's samurai armor.
The armor. Okay, I was going to have you touch on this. Okay, go ahead.
And then, so like this is the pristine thing. This is representation of the house. It looks scary. It's daunting.
Yeah.
It's powerful, like the samurai.
Right.
But by the end of the movie, which is what I think Kobayashi, the director, is going for, is the dismantling of this viewing of samurai. So at the end, as Hanshiro's running around the house, he ends up into the room with that armor and just grabs it. It's like flinging it around.
Throwing
It
around,
looks
throwing it on the
like
ground.
a fake little toy.
Yeah, I had mentioned this earlier. Like there was something in the final fight sequence.
Okay,
that
I thought you were talking about the
Kobayashi
guns
was talking about.
yep,
No,
yep.
the guns is part of it, but the armor more specifically, because he
Yes.
literally picks it up, throws it on the ground,
Right.
and it's just like, so again, it's this real
Nothing.
repudiation
Yep.
of samurai tradition, and I thought, yeah, that was a very powerful moment.
Yes.
It's like, this is all crap.
Yep.
You know it's crap. This is all crap. I'm showing you it's crap. You're crap.
Yes. Yep.
Crap.
And then I love it. After Hanshiro dies, there's still about 5 minutes to go in this
Yeah.
movie because the senior counselor now has cleanup duty.
Right.
And what would the honorable thing to do here be?
Tell the truth.
That is not the path they're going
Nope.
to take, right?
He orders everybody to lie.
Lie. So again, this hiding behind honor. We don't want to lose the honor. We don't want to lose the faith of the citizens. We have to lie to them.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah. I thought that was a really great touch because, and again, it goes back to that desperation and knowing that he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And he knew it. And like I said, that sequence in the courtyard, it was such a tell. He knew he was the bad guy. He knew he was in the wrong. And it just, does not have the honor or the strength to get past it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, a lot of reasons why I love this movie. One of them being there's a lot of bald people. Bald people outnumber people with hair like at least 3 or 4 to 1, which is great. But I just love. I think for a lot part of this movie, it's like, oh, there's a twist on the storytelling, and oh, this movie's about making you actually appreciate Chijiwa's story, not think he's like just some loser, like maybe you could have thought in the first 20 minutes. And then it's like that final act is so much heavy lifting where it actually wraps this bigger bowl of, no, this game that Hanshiro was playing was all about proving to these people, making them stare themselves in the mirror and show them how dishonorable they were, give them opportunities to undo that, and they can't.
Yeah.
They are who they are, and he was right the whole time. And I just love how his plan all comes together.
Yeah. No, and like I said, it feels organic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost, this is obviously a completely different type of movie, but something like an Ocean's 11 or something like that.
Right.
It's like you've got this intricate plan that just kind of comes together, and like this feels very organic. Like his plan came together. It didn't feel planned. It felt natural in the storytelling.
Yeah.
And so I think that made it very impactful when those pieces all fell into place.
All right, Rob. There's a couple questions we usually try to end the podcast with.
Yep.
So let me ask you the first one. Do you know what was up with Miho's teeth?
I was going to ask you that question because I just thought she might have, been a big fan of Shinsuke Nakamura, the
No.
WWE wrestler, because he has that same thing going on.
Yeah,
with his
no.
teeth.
So she has just pitch black teeth, and
Yeah.
I'm like, at first I was thinking like, is this a sign of like the poverty, like she's lost all her teeth? But I'm like, man, they call her beautiful all throughout the movie, and I'm like, she is, but if a girl's missing all her teeth, maybe like knock her down a couple pegs.
Sure.
But no. So I guess in feudal Japan, this was a practice. I looked this up. It was called ohaguro.
Okay.
I'm probably not saying that exactly right, but where like they used they purposely blackened their teeth. It was their way of kind of wearing an engagement ring. Like it's a sign of beauty. It's a sign of like showing that you've been married,
Right.
that you're rich or related to samurai. And yeah, so it was a
That was weird. Okay.
Yeah, it was purposeful.
That's purposeful. That seems odd to me.
Yeah.
That seems odd to
Well,
me. But
and
this isn't
yeah.
a movie about people going up and knocking on people's doors and asking if you can kill
Yeah.
yourself in their yard. So
Yes.
blackened teeth is like, okay.
Yeah, whatever dental practice you want,
got
go
it.
ahead.
I got it.
All right, no. So the other question I was supposed to that we wanted to actually answer in our conversation as we dissected this movie was, is honor a real thing, or is it kind of this construct?
I honestly, I think in the end, I'm kind of with Hanshiro on this one. I think it's construct.
Yeah,
it's a bit of
it's
a
a facade.
because so many people are willing to just let it go.
Right.
Or
bend it
bend
their
it.
needs.
Yeah, bend it till it breaks, if you will. And I think true honor can exist.
Sure.
But I don't know if people are capable of truly living it.
That is a great point. At least not all the time. You know what I mean?
fair
So it's
enough.
like if you can't do it all the time, you can't pretend you're doing it all the time.
Right.
You can be honorable at times.
Yeah.
But I think when you take things to the extreme,
Yeah.
like maybe these samurai are trying to do, that's when the cracks are gonna show.
Yeah.
And then there's one last question, Rob. This is the one that is important to me. The most important to me is, we all know I love this movie. That's why I selected it. But
Exactly.
after your first viewing, did you enjoy Harakiri, and would you recommend it?
Okay. So, I have to think long and hard about this. No, I don't. I loved this movie.
Yay!
I loved it. I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
Awesome.
I mean, we're barreling towards the end of the year, and we got a top 5 list
Ooh,
coming. And
yes,
this,
we do.
I'm telling you, I loved Harakiri. Like I said, my exposure to samurai films has been mostly Akira Kurosawa.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of nice to give somebody else a shot, you know, because that's like considered to be Kurosawa is always considered to be the pinnacle. So coming in and seeing somebody else's work, I think is great. There's so many things I love about this movie. So many things. So number one, I love Tatsuya Nakadai.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
my
actor who
God.
played Hanshiro.
Yeah, Hanshiro. My God, that man could act. I mean, he blew me away.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, the fact that he kind of came in looking like this ramshackle character.
Totally disheveled.
Totally disheveled, but he owned every scene, and it was in every nuance and every line delivery. And like I said, just his weird, little sounds he would make, like, oh. And like it's just that kind of stuff, and then he would redirect the conversation. I mean, so good. And the guy that plays,
I was gonna say real quick,
counselor,
I know about Nakadai. Of all the movies he's ever been in, obviously he says this is his favorite too. So
I could understand why.
Yeah.
I could understand why. The guy that plays the counselor, I thought he was really great, and I think part of the reason why is this movie lives in close-ups.
Yeah.
Like the Kobayashi's use of close-ups is so effective. Like I said, the way that he could get in on a human face and pick up those nuances,
the subtlety.
Like with the counselor, you notice it a lot with his jaw. He would twitch, and like it was so effective.
Yeah.
And that's how you could sell the fear, that guilt, that said the
embarrassment, whatever.
The embarrassment, right? Yeah, that this guy was feeling. I mean, it was mind-blowingly good. And then this movie is, it's shot beautifully. Like I said, this kind of like lyrical poetry of Asian cinema. It's just so good. The lighting is phenomenal. One thing that I'm gonna gush for a minute. I thought, like, when you were talking about the scene where they brought the body back, Chijiro's body back,
exactly what you're gonna
and
say.
then like the 3 guys exit, and then you go to the spot just on Hanshiro and Miho. I mean, oh my God, I freaked out. I was like, oh man, like
that was good.
So
that was something good.
Good. Oh man, yeah. And like you said, like the dialogue between the characters is just out of this world. I thought the social commentary was amazing. Just this idea of kind of tearing down the idealism of the samurai, because a lot of times that they are idealized,
right?
And I think that there's always kind of pitfalls in that when you take something like that and you put it on such a pedestal. I think that there's just but it's a fearless movie, with the depths that they would that they kind of sent Tsugumo into, Hanshiro into, with losing Miho, losing Kingo. I mean, God, sick Kingo was so heartbreaking. Like this kid, like with the fever, like it was just so effective.
Their pillows
are
so small.
I know. And then, obviously, kind of talking about, again, going back and touching again on the brutality of Chijiwa's Harakiri scene with the bamboo blades. I mean, my God.
Literally gut-wrenching.
Gut-wrenching, like literally. And, like when he falls on it, I mean, just for being a 2-hour and 13-minute movie, there's a lot of scenes that could feel slow. Right. And it's because he wasn't afraid to take his time.
Yeah.
Kobayashi knew what he was doing every moment with every frame. And my God, I was blown away by Harakiri. I have to say. Well, all right, Ray, it was clear that I loved Harakiri. you loved Harakiri
Of
because
course, it's
you
my movie.
recommended it. But before we go, Ray, I gotta know: is there anything else you might recommend that I should check out?
Definitely some stuff that I would recommend. I finished Solar Opposites, kind
Oh
of like the
yeah,
Rick and Morty side piece show.
right.
Um,
Rick and Morty's side piece.
yeah, this was it. This was it. It was the Justin Roiland's or whoever's final side piece, maybe. Not Justin Roiland. He's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah,
Does he
he's
not do
back.
Solar Opposites either now?
No, he
Yeah,
got
he
replaced.
got done with
But
everything.
yeah. But this was the final season for that show. Rick and Morty's still going, but Solar Opposites is done, and it's good. It's just like I kind of feel the same way about like Harley Quinn. It's like it's just so it's the character so well in like shows that are these like obscene comedies. It's almost like you
Right.
can see all the jokes coming, or
Sure.
they don't feel fresh.
Just run out of narrative runway, but they get like the characters are still funny in them in and
Yeah.
of themselves.
Yeah, so it's fine, but probably a good time to end it.
Sure.
Slow Horses season 5.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
talked about
Many
at least
times.
at least last year. Talked about Slow Horse season 4. I love that. I highly recommend anybody with Apple TV Plus. Don't just watch Ted Lasso. Check out Slow Horses. Gary Oldman is phenomenal in the show. They, it's like a spy thriller. They always do a great job of just of making the show complicated and keeps you guessing and hoping they're gonna be able to figure this out and save the day, and they always do.
Is it each season has its own thing, or are they
Yeah.
all connected?
They're not all they're connected for the characters, but there's always this new threat to the country
Got it.
that they're saving.
Sure.
So really, really well, really smart show. And I love that at the end of every season they already have the trailer for the next season. So I don't know if
That's
it's already aired in like in England.
Probably.
But
That's probably what it is.
the next season looks interesting. Cinematically, it looks very different. So I'm kind of nervous about that.
Okay.
But we shall see. I watched the docs Stiller and Mira.
Oh, sure, yeah. I'd see
Nothing is Lost.
Ben was out there pushing that. Yeah.
Very interesting. It's Ben Stiller kind of looking at his parents' relationship growing up, and
Yeah.
there's some of it like what's it like to be the child of two Hollywood type figures,
Right.
but
yeah.
there really was this complication of like of his parents' relationship that they kind of explore. It's pretty interesting. This
Mhm.
this couple that is an act, and in the act they don't always like each other or they're bossy to each other, and then
Right.
like being able to draw the line when you get home, and
Uh-huh.
needing each other to to be successful and not and then risking going independent.
hmm
So it was interesting to kind of explore their life choices in that way, and see that. I always know his dad from Seinfeld. That's
Right.
my first exposure to him.
Right.
I loved him in that show, but so get to see some of the stuff that preluded that was pretty
I
interesting.
feel like that's kind of a thing for like I guess Gen X actors at this point is who are like children of famous actors.
Yeah.
To like do these docs about their parents now. Like I know Mariska Hargitay has one out there about her mom Jane Mansfield.
Yeah. Yep.
That's been making the rounds and stuff like that. So I feel like it's just like they're all getting to that age now where
Yeah.
it's like it's either like they're trying to deal with the trauma of being brought up
Yeah.
in that kind of environment, or just kind of contextualizing it in whatever way that they see fit. But I feel like it's a thing now.
Yeah, I think Ben has a little like column A, little column B there.
Really?
He's like, there's
Okay.
some trauma, but I also then did it to my own kids too, so I can't act
Right.
too
That's
weird
fair.
about it. But and then Frankenstein. Had to check out Frankenstein on
I'd
Netflix.
watch that too.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was sure you did, Guillermo del Toro. I think we've kind of said coming into this movie like I'm not a huge Frankenstein fan. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I
been done
like
to death.
Frankenstein, but
Yeah.
just but did I need another Frankenstein? That would have been the question that I had going into this.
Yeah. So, and I would say I liked this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to check it out too many more times necessarily. Not because it's not good. I think everything in the movie is great. I like a lot of the choices. I think how everybody likes their own Frankenstein is different. Maybe
Sure.
This Frankenstein is definitely a Guillermo del Toro's vision.
Yeah.
I maybe like a little more dumbed down Frankenstein, a little more classic.
With
Some bolts out of the neck wouldn't hurt anybody.
Little dumb Frankenstein. Can I
Yeah.
get dumb brainless
Yeah,
Frankenstein?
just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I will say for Guillermo del Toro, and I think I've said this multiple times, that he is kind of the master of the modern fairy tale
Sure.
in my mind, and I think that it's very much kind of like when we did Nosferatu.
Yeah.
With why is my mind going blank?
The newest one?
Yeah,
playing
No,
Nosferatu.
who directed Nosferatu? David Eggers. David Eggers.
Yes.
I think it's a situation where it's like the right director for the movie, and I do think Robert Eggers, not David Eggers, Robert Eggers. God, and I think it, Guillermo was the right guy to make this movie.
Sure,
That's the point
sure.
that I'm
I mean,
getting
he
to.
could do
It's
that with
like,
every monster movie.
right? And I think it's just it's right in his milieu. Like it's
Yeah.
like a movie you could claim he was born to make.
Sure.
You know, and I think that's kind of the same situation here as it was for Robert Eggers and Nosferatu. It fit so well for him. So I think for me, I loved it because it was a Guillermo movie. It was
Yeah.
a movie that he could make with the greatest of ease.
Yeah.
I thought Oscar Isaacs was great as
Yeah, he was
Dr.
good.
Frankenstein. Like I thought he played that character really well. I thought Mia Goth was pretty good. She was. The funny thing about Mia Goth is I just know her so much from the Ty West trilogy, X,
Yeah.
Pearl, and Maxine.
Yeah.
And this is just a different role completely
Sure.
for her, so it's kind of cool to see her in this
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, again, it's proficient, it's great, but I don't think it was ever not going to be.
Yeah.
In that regard, you know what I mean? But that could be a detraction, I guess,
Yeah.
in a way.
I don't know. For me, like I said, I really liked it. I think people should check it out. You'll like it. I wouldn't say that I loved it because I just don't know if I could have loved another Frankenstein movie. Like,
Sure, that's fair.
they'd have to do something pretty drastically different to like get me on board. It's just, I said a lot of stuff just feels too similar. I'm like,
Sure.
but yeah, it's good. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's got Guillermo's hands all over it. It seems great. So
Yeah.
now I know you've had to watch some other stuff other than just Frankenstein recently,
Absolutely,
Rob.
I did. So I watched a movie called Vicious, which is it's Dakota Fanning, who I feel
Okay.
like in her younger years was like the Fanning, like she was
Yeah,
everywhere.
she's been
Dakota
replaced.
Fanning, and it was and it is she has, and we'll get to that because of another movie I watched.
Oh.
But Dakota finally, I feel like it's like she pops up every now and again.
Yeah.
Now it's like she's just not everywhere, but she
Right.
pops up every now and again. She popped up in this movie Vicious, and it was an interesting concept. She plays this woman who's like clearly trying to get back on her feet. They don't really ever go into like why she's kind of
Down and out?
Yeah, like why she's having issues, but she's like living in this house that belongs to her sister, who is not in the movie that much, but she's home alone. She's like got this big job interview the next day, and this old lady shows up at the door with a box and is like kind of talks her way into the house, and then essentially kind of hands off this box to her, and clearly this woman's been through something because she's like, I'm sorry, but you're gonna die tonight.
Oh, thanks.
And it's like, oh, what? And it's so basically with this box, she has to put in like something she needs, something she hates, and something she loves. But she doesn't know what those things are, and the box has to kind of like tell her what those things are, and they're not maybe necessarily things she wants to give up. But if she doesn't do it, like everybody in her life dies.
Yikes.
It was a weird movie.
Yeah.
Like don't know if I necessarily would recommend it. Like by the end, I didn't necessarily know what they were going for. But it was a creepy movie in the ways that it was supposed to be. I just don't think that the narrative was clear enough to understand exactly what was happening.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Yeah, it was like trying to be very heady, but I think it almost kind of got too over its own head.
Yeah.
And I hate when that happens. But on the flip of that, Elle Fanning, who is now the It Fanning, I think it's perfectly clear to say. I don't think it's unfair.
You mentioned many times.
Elle Fanning is great, and I love Elle Fanning, and she was in Predator Badlands.
Yes.
So I took Mr. Kitty Kaiju to see Predator Badlands this past weekend.
I've heard good things.
And I loved it.
Oh,
I thought it was
sweet.
great. Like it is a different kind of avenue for the franchise, just because it really centers on the Yautja.
Right.
Like on a central Yautja instead of like them being the antagonist.
Yeah, they're the
actually
protagonist.
the protagonist.
Yeah.
So that kind of turns everything up on its head. But I think it kind of needed it. Like it's a they've tried different ways of doing this, approaching it different ways, but they always felt like they had to have another character that was like the main character,
Right.
and the Yautja was just kind of around them in some way. This very much just about the Yautja, about their culture too, which I thought was very interesting, and it ended up being a bit of an Alien crossover as well. And that kind of ends up being through the character played by Elle Fanning, and she's fantastic. Like she just knocks it out of the park in
As
this
half
movie.
a robot.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. She's so good. So I highly recommend that. Let's see.
Any Prey crossover? Because
No.
Predator movies are kind of high.
Yeah.
Like they're on a high right now if you count Prey and that.
And I actually rewatched Prey after we watched
Yeah.
Predator Badlands, just because it had been a minute since I had watched Prey. And I mean, it's just they're different movies,
Right.
Because it's still like the Yautja in Prey is the antagonist,
Sure,
so it's
sure.
like that's very much more about that, the Native Americans and the tribe and the Comanche tribe and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of crossover with Badlands. One, because Badlands doesn't take place on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's the other part.
Yeah, I know
of
it's
it
on
as well.
that pure alien planet. That's how they avoid the R rating.
Right.
No red blood.
No red blood. Exactly. No red blood. So not a lot of crossover now. Stylistically similarities though, because Dan Trachtenberg did both, so that stands to reason. Let's see what else. Oh, and then another thing that I wanted to watch, or that I wanted to talk about, is I watched Pavements, which is a documentary.
You watched The Sidewalk.
No, I mean no, but I did it. The Pavements is a documentary about pavement.
Oh
The
gosh,
band.
that's not...
The band.
Oh, the band.
The band.
My God.
Yeah, no, Pavement the band, which is a favorite band of mine. So this was a pretty interesting documentary. I feel like there's just every band. It seems to have like a doc about themselves now.
Sure.
Every classic band has a doc about
They
themselves.
all
So
had a great experience creating and living their
or
lives.
didn't, and it's so getting that information across is can be kind of boring depending on whatever. And so this was Alex Ross Perry did this documentary. He did like Listen Up Philip, Her Smell. He's very more just an artsy kind of director. So you kind of expect something a little bit more from him going in, and he definitely delivers it because. So when this movie was first announced, they announced it, I believe, as a biopic, which was kind of everybody's like, "Wait a minute, what? Like that? I don't know about that." But then it's a documentary. It's okay. And then there was a jukebox musical about Pavement that was announced, and then a traveling art exhibition, like museum exhibition about Pavement, and so. The band broke up in '99, and 20 years went by before they got back together again. They were a band that like people would throw money at festivals to try to get them back together, and they wouldn't do it. It was kind of not a great ending to the band. Like they kind of melted down, and so the whole documentary kind of revolves around this first show that they're going to play together again, and them kind of getting ready for it. But they're telling this story kind of in flashback while they're doing this, but it also kind of bounces back and forth between this musical theater thing, which I didn't think was real, but it actually was.
Okay.
The exhibition was real, but the movie is fake. Like the biopic is fake. So Joe Keery from Stranger Things is in it. He plays Stephen Malkmus, who is the lead singer of Pavement. And it's funny because it shows the casting process for the movie. So at that point, he's Joe Keery, and all these other people or these other actors are themselves. But then it gets to a point when they're like acting out actual like scenes from this fake biopic.
Like we took this fake movie and are inserting it into the doc.
Right, exactly. But it's funny because I think what they're really trying to say is like it's like a band that thinks very highly of themselves, and like they're bigger than what they are or whatever. Like I think not that they think that they're making fun of bands that think that or whatever, that kind of thing. It's kind of a send up of that. Why would we ever be a band that somebody would make a biopic about? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. But it was great. It was a great documentary. Like it's just a very interesting way to kind of get this information across, and obviously I already loved Pavement going in, but I feel like even if you didn't, you'd kind of fall in love with their music a little bit more, just going through there. So I think it's really cool.
Doc.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are a Pavement fan or even a casual Pavement fan, you should definitely check out Pavements. I think it's one of the best, music docs I've seen in a long time.
All right, everybody, we are just about ready to wrap up our conversation on Harakiri. But before we do, you guys have something to do, or I will commit Harakiri. I swear to God, I'll do it, man.
I don't believe you. Here's some money.
That's too low hanging fruit. I'll just, they would have no honor if they don't like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a 5-star review, because if you do, we'll read it live on air someday. Email us if you want to talk to us at carrayrob@gmail.com, or reach out to us and talk to us on Blue Sky.
Absolutely. You can also find us now on Facebook at CAR RAYROB Podcast Network. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you are on, by all means, let us know what you thought of Harakiri. Did you love it as much as I did? Because, man, I loved it. We will be back next week with this month's episode of Hello Movies, My Old Friend, where Ray and I revisit old classics to see if they still hold up. But we have to do something we've never had to do before.
I'm very upset about this.
And we have to do a programming change.
We don't do these.
We don't typically do these. Unfortunately, we were going to cover the John Candy romantic comedy Only the Lonely.
Which I've been so looking forward to.
Me too, but it is nowhere to be streamed.
No. Whoever owns this movie sucks.
Yeah, we don't. There's a licensing issue, and it is nowhere to be found. So we have to come up with something different. So what we have decided, we decided to keep it John Candy, and we are going to go with the 1989 detective comedy Who's Harry Crumb?
Who's Harry Harakiri?
Harakiri. Who's Harakiri? No, Who's Harry Crumb? Another one of John Candy's movies that I loved as a kid, but I have to say again, it has been a long time since I have watched that. So hopefully it'll fill that hole that Only the Lonely was going to fill. But I guess we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But then we will be back in 2 weeks, and it will be back to me on Say Hello to My Little Film. And I have to say, I am excited about this one.
Are you?
Yeah. I've been saving this movie for a while. It's one of my absolute favorites. I think you are going to love it. I think I can honestly say I've saved the best for last.
Ooh, very smart.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see though. I could be wrong.
I've hated things you've loved before.
I could be wrong. But either way, you are not gonna want to miss it. So until then, this is CAR RAYROB.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, everyone. Rob here. I want to give you a little sneak peek of that amazing movie that I told you I was going to be programming for Ray this month or next month in December. I am going all the way back to 1960, and I'm going to show Ray the romantic comedy The Apartment. Written, directed, produced by the iconic Billy Wilder, starring Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, Fred MacMurray. This is one of my favorite movies, and I've wanted to show it to Ray for a while. It is a Christmas kind of New Year's-ish movie, so I thought this was the time to do it. I'm going to pull that trigger. If you have not seen The Apartment, do yourself a favor and go do it, and come back in 2 weeks and hear what Ray has to say.